What's going on, guys? Jumping into the deadlift today and a few different cues and kind of a different way of thinking about the deadlift that I think a lot of you will benefit from. And it's something that Dave and I have been going over through all the Train Your Ass Off groups that we've had in the last couple weeks here. So for all who don't know, this is Sparky. Sparky's gonna be my crash test dummy today. So in a deadlift, right, a lot of the times people have issues off the floor. And that comes from their lack of good positioning, lack of getting tight. But what I'm gonna show you today is a little bit of a style of training or a style of warming up for your deadlift that can help facilitate better cues, better positioning, and better tightness for the deadlift. So if I'm working with somebody who's never deadlifted before in their life, and Sparky is somebody who has never truly deadlifted before in his life, which is really good, I'm just gonna watch him lift a few times. So let's just see a few reps, nothing crazy, just what you normally do. Good. Good, all right. As you can see, it's a combination of like a monkey humping a doorknob and like a gorilla just kind of bending over the bar here. But no, it's pretty good. But as being, he's one of my training partners, one of his issues is getting tight off the floor and keeping that tension. So what I'm gonna have him do is think about floating the bar. This looks like a pause deadlift, but I talk about floating the bar because in order to get that bar to start kind of pulling off the ground, we need to get all the tension in all the right spots, in the lats, in the core, in the upper back, everywhere, right? So what I'm gonna have you do, think about just floating the bar just an inch off the ground and then complete the rep. So what I'm gonna say is I'm gonna say float and then rep, all right? So get nice and tight. So float it, float, 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 rep. Good. Do one more. Float, 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 rep. Good. Now, if you notice his positioning when he's in that floated position, it almost looks like he's squatting the weight up. So with this style of warm-up or with this style of execution, if you're a coach, if you're a trainer, you can actually start nitpicking and kind of going into the form and critique their form in the middle of the lift as well. So what I'm gonna have him do, he's probably pulls what, 6 or something, floating around 600 pounds, which is cool. I mean, he doesn't look it, so that's very true. Cool. What I'm gonna have him do is I'm gonna have him float the bar and I'm gonna adjust his position before he fires the rep through, okay? So let's see it. Float again. Yep, float it again. So we'll float a little bit more forward lean. Hips a little, right there, then go. Good, same thing. Try to mimic that same position, right? Float, good, go. Same thing. Float it. Good. Right there. Go. Rest. So the same reason that Dave likes using the box squat when bringing people out here to teach them a little bit more about squatting and how to be more efficient with squatting, you can, in the middle of the rep, adjust the position, adjust where their body is. I like doing this version as well as a warm-up to lock in that really good form. So that felt pretty good. Yeah. So getting that tension off the floor is very, very important. This is one way of doing it, but another way, if you want to actually start increasing the weight a little bit more, is to use blocks. Now, most of the internet will say, and we've made a video on this, block pulls are great to train your lockout on deadlifts, but we're going to use blocks as a means of building your tension off the floor. So we're gonna throw this bar up on blocks and get right into it. So if you noticed, the distance in which Sparky pulled the bar off the floor was about 1.5 inches, 2 inches, something like that. With this version of a block pull, we're trying to mimic that. But with this, we don't need to worry about straining so hard to pull the weight off the floor. We can start from that position, which is actually more difficult. So now what I want Sparky to do, we're gonna initiate the pull. Think about creating that same sort of tension and tightness and floating the bar. What you're gonna notice here is the bar is pretty much where you float it, right? So the only way that bar is gonna be able to move and be in a good position if you create the tension and tightness that you need to stay in that good position. Yeah. So the same idea, keep everything the exact same. Think about building that tension. Go. Good. Same thing. Build it, go. Good, give me one more. Build it. That That was terrible. Go again, go again. Too much. A little bit more tension, tension, tension. Go. Much better. If you notice here, this is a block pull, right? Very simple. But we're training it in a way to get him to lock in that position off the floor. This is, for most people, this is a very disadvantageous position if you had to start from a dead stop. This is usually where people, if they're gonna fail, they've already failed. It's about halfway up his shin, right? And if somebody can get past this, they can usually lock it out. But we are using what looks like a lockout tool to train off the floor, right? So one of the reasons I wanted to show this is because it is such an amazing tool for people to use in their training, and it all depends on who is using the tool. So in Sparky's case, I would have him do this variation to work on that positioning off the floor. Because if we can get into the tight bottom position here, when we take that block away, it's actually going to be easier to get tighter, right? This is the same reason why a lot of people who struggle off the floor can actually probably pull more with a deficit. If I were to put you in a deficit pull, you'd probably be able to get more leg drive, right? Because you can build that tension for longer, and it artificially puts you in a tighter position. So anytime you're training, the key is to work on the things you suck at, work on the things that you're bad at, and to find tools in which you can sharpen your skills and get better at the things you're trying to work on. So now what we're gonna do is show you the opposite of this. If you have a weak lockout during your deadlift, you can actually use deficit pulls to do that. So let's set up a deficit here real quick and we'll show you. All right, so deficit pulls for a weak lockout. Sounds crazy, but think about it. We are increasing the amount of time and the amount of distance that you need to be able to lock out your deadlift. So if we're really bad at lockouts, don't you think that training a greater range of motion on the lockout would help benefit you? So same idea. If Sparky here is really, really shitty at lockouts, I will program these in to help him maintain a better position for that extended lockout. So let's see it, just a few reps. So nice and tight, keep everything the same. Good. Good. Nice and tight. Good. As you see, we're increasing the distance in which he needs to lock out and maintain that good position. This is a very simple tool, and it's something that a lot of powerlifters have been using for a long time. And you can use these to get better off the floor. You can use these to get better at lockout. I just want you guys to really focus in on this and make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. If you've never tried working on your lockout with deficits, give it a shot. If you've never worked on your starting position with block pulls, give it a shot. And for the love of God, don't be like Sparky here. Just be better. Just be better people on the internet and do what you can to be better and smarter and just not be so ugly. So guys, thank you very much for checking out this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you in the next one.